Malowitz with yet again another leadership journey video segment. I want to talk today about neuroplasticity. I like the idea, the concept, the visual, and the fascinating nature of neuroplasticity. How has your neuroplasticity exploration been going? You might be asking, what is neuroplasticity? Well, the easiest definition is it's the idea of pushing yourself to try new things. A slightly more complicated or sophisticated answer, I should say, of what neuroplasticity is it's the brain's ability to change continuously throughout our lives by forming new neural connections. Now, it's also known as brain plasticity or neuroplasticity. This means that our brains can be altered, changed, improved, expanded. And this idea works whether you're in your teens, you're a young adult, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. In the end, neuroplasticity means let's try new things. Let's try things that maybe we once thought weren't possible. Let's try things that we know would make a difference, but maybe we're too afraid to try, or we fear risking failure. Now, may I also offer, let's also perhaps think about stop doing stuff that isn't getting the results that we want. Let's do that first. Stop before we start. Then let's start doing stuff which then builds new neural connections in the brain, and voila, you and I are engaging in the science of neuroplasticity. Now, I know this isn't rocket science to say, but I find that it's often rocket science to try to figure out how to get the brain to want to be okay with trying new things or taking on new situations, things that we're not doing now. Stop doing things that are stupid and instead start doing things that will get us in the right direction towards the things that we truly seek in the long run. Neuroplasticity allows the neurons or nerve cells in the brain to compensate to adjust their activities in response to new situations or try new things and then be able to adjust to changes in the environment. I would like to challenge you to consider that on the edge of becoming the organization that we want to be, and I do believe that there are enough of us out there that want this or it, that priming the brain now to be open, how about even seek out opportunities professionally and personally to rewire and update our brains to generate new neural pathways to do neuroplasticity. It's a wise thing. Now, I'm not saying that we have to go gangbusters overnight and go from where we are right now to bungee jumping off a platform, or wake up tomorrow and run 50 miles, or go from a state of being maybe right now lame, emotional, intelligent, or maturity to enlightened maturity overnight, or go out from today not respecting a colleague to suddenly start respecting them. Instead, I'm referring to this idea of just being maybe a little bit open to this idea. Invite into your space the idea of neuroplasticity, this notion to try and be and do and act and think and say and be open to new, to higher planes of habits around leadership and working together and thinking differently. You have heard us pontificate now probably to death over the last 2.5 years, this idea of that in the final analysis, the greatest difference between any two leaders is simply how you think. So what are you thinking about? Have you thought about being completely open to the universe leadership fairy sending you opportunities to press your limits and adopt more neuroplasticity into your brain? I know, easy to say and harder to do. I get it. And perhaps step one is just being open to it. Invite that bad boy, that bad boy being the idea of neuroplasticity, into your head. For me, this journey has been messing with my neural connections and trying to think about and try on neuroplasticity. It's been kind of fun and a bit challenging at times. I am on a journey to recognize stupid stuff I am doing, stop doing the stupid stuff, discover and uncover wiser ways of doing things formerly stupid, and then start doing wiser things over time. This is the journey of neuroplasticity. This is the journey that I'm on. Other examples for me of stuff that I want to form wiser neural connections around or include things like, I want to stop seeing anyone as an I-it. I want to stop taking offense. I want to stop thinking just efficiency. I want to stop being overzealous. I want to stop being driven by novelty and excitement. I want to stop aging. Just kidding. But how bad do I really want to stop doing these things? How high is my desire really? Therein lies my journey. Therein lies your journey. I hopefully have become convinced that we can do anything that we want. Anything is possible if the desire is high enough. I'm encouraging you to do the same thing. Using this idea of neuroplasticity, it's really no different. If we really want to form new neural connections in our brain, strong desire has to be there as a starting spot. All right, in terms of being there for this idea of neuroplasticity, there's also some fascinating principles that come into play here. Things like, for change to occur, survival anxiety must be greater than learning anxiety. Reduce learning anxiety by creating psychological safety. Leadership is the mutual influence process where leaders and followers intend and pursue mutual purposes. Effective change initiates or relies on reducing anxiety and increasing control. Before we start to build or rebuild, we must stop destroying. To change people, help them change the image of themselves. How about this one? Faulty assumptions regarding human behavior are almost always at the nature and the heart of false starts and failures. How about this one? Collaboration equals cooperation plus coordination minus competition. How about this one? There is no such thing as bad attitude. Behind every negative attitude, there is a positive value. I like this one. A productive worker is a happy worker, and it's not the other way around. How about this one? In a negative environment, even principles won't work. And how about this one to finish? The leadership journey or the leadership legacy you live is the leadership legacy you leave. My friends, it's possible. It's very possible. It's unequivocally possible. But is our desire high enough? That is likely the culprit. And in fact, it's very, very much the culprit that impedes us from taking this idea of neuroplasticity in our brains and doing something with it. The idea of neuroplasticity can also be fun as you think about trying new things in your life in some of the dimensions of life that exist. Things or dimensions like mental, spiritual, social, financial, emotional, and physical being the last one. For me personally, I like to try new things physically. Things physically that I can't do now or couldn't do, but that now I can. Some of these I've tried or that I want to try on. Some of them are very legit, some are hard things, some are cheesy things, and some are even dumb things. But for me, there is something fascinating about trying new things of a physical nature on that really pique my interest, and my desire level is high on these arenas. For example, I had fun, although it was extremely frustrating at times last year on the journey of trying to ride the unrideable bike. I got there and now can ride the unrideable bike. Another example, I wanted to scream, although at certain times in the process of trying to become more flexible and do weird, hard, at least for this guy, yoga moves and as well as work the yoga trapeze. I got there and now I am a bit more flexible and can do some weird, hard, at least for this guy, yoga moves, and blew my own socks off in terms of my initial thinking or limiting thinking around neural connections related to free falling on the yoga trapeze. I can do it now. Yes. In addition, I probably have some 50 plus other things related to pushing my own neuroplasticity and neural connections as it relates to physical limits. My list is huge. For example, here's a couple more. I still want to walk on fire coals. I still want to climb, free climb at high heights. I want to climb Mount Everest. I want to feel what it's like to have all sorts of non-biting, non-fire ants crawling all over me and then scrape them off. That one's kind of weird, but I'm interested in it. Do you want to join me? Now, these are just a few of mine. They certainly don't have to be yours. But what's on your list? What's on your professional development neuroplasticity list? For me, the list professionally is also equally long. There's still lots left for me to learn, unlearn, get wiser, and refine. It's all possible. It's perhaps still, as I mentioned, all comes down to desire. Do you and I want it bad enough? What's your desire on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being low, 10 being high, to push the bounds of your current neural connections, neuroplasticity related to professional development, leadership, leader, follower, and just general overall development. I often wonder what gets in the way of us thinking about this idea of pushing ourselves more. Answer, it's likely this idea of quadrant 2, that life produces this plethora of things that is important but not urgent. And anything that's urgent, or not urgent I should say, but important, is always at the risk of being put off. Additionally, what gets in the way of us stopping short of moving through internalizing, integrating, and institutionalizing the things that we say that matter most, the principles that we want to incorporate in our lives? It's likely also this idea of quadrant 2. Things that are not urgent are always at the risk of being put off. Now, I'm still trying to figure out this for sure, and I know once I get there, once you get there, we'll all be wiser. What's interesting is recently I led a class where we were talking about increasing neuroplasticity as it relates to business development, selling, and the idea of salespersonship. It's always a healthy, thriving debate when you throw out the question to attendees that asks them to state if the following question that I'm going to give you in a moment here is true or false. So here's the question. Is it true or false? We are built for novelty and excitement. We are not built for discipline. Is this for you true or false? For me, if you take away the general first knee-jerk, personal, ego-driven reaction to this statement and don't take it personally, you have to then answer the question as true. We do go for novelty and excitement. We're not built for discipline. Now, the great part is this is not an indictment, but it's simply what is. And when you take or accept what is, then you can go to work making it otherwise for you and for me. That while we may be wired for novelty and excitement, it doesn't mean that we have to live our lives that way. Take charge, own your desire, own your professional development, own your leadership development, own your mutual influence, own giving and reacting to feedback, own your own visceral response to being offended when you first hear hard feedback, own your obligation to institutionalize principles on a personal level, but then also at the functional and company-wide level. Own becoming more aware of your tacit underlying assumptions. Own your bias, own your biases, own being part of the solution, not part of the problem. I'm Kit Alowitz. We'll see you next time.